Welcome, everybody. You will be probably coming in on mute and would prefer that you stay on mute during the presentation, and then we will switch to, hi, everybody. Then we will switch to Q&A, and we can go back to video at the end. Hi, Sonara, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. So nice to see you.
That's good. It's nice to see you too.
Jasmine's coming tonight too.
Oh, that's awesome.
Hi, Jillian. Hi, Martha.
Hi, quick question, or just to let you know, Stephanie, oh, there she is. She's back in. Forget it. She was with Steve. She had Steve Belch's name, and so she wasn't able to get in, but now she's on. I see. Thanks. We're good. We're good.
Okay. They keep coming in. What happened the last time is I had added people so we could get more than 100. I'd added it in the account, but you have to check this box, and I had never been able to. I didn't know I had to check the box, and they never tell you. So I found out afterwards that I was not really allowing people to come in after 100. Welcome, everybody. I hope this is going to be a weird year, huh? Christmas year. Anybody doing parties? Like, hi, Sophie. How are you? Good to see you.
Good. Good to see you too.
Uh-huh. Let me go to the next page. It keeps coming. They keep coming. So we'll be on 3 pages, I think. They max out at 49 or some 48, 40, 36.
Hi, Susan.
Hey, hello.
How you doing?
Patsy, it's good to
Patsy.
see you.
Howdy, howdy.
I'm not seeing you, Patsy, but I'm hearing you. So good to hear you, Patsy.
Well, here's the beauty.
You'll always hear
There
her,
she is.
right, Patsy?
Okay.
Well, it only took me 10 million years to get on, and I don't know how I did it. Hi, Diane.
I think we have everybody in right now. I'm seeing 65 participants, so that's good. I think
Wow.
we hit about almost 100 on last week. So just so everybody knows, we are recording, and this recording will be made available afterwards if you would like to share it or want to sit through it for some unknown reason that you want to sit through it again, maybe to listen to some part. There are some excellent videos in there. All the links are in here so that you can get to those videos afterwards and look at them to your heart's content. Roseanne, I'm sure you're going to love it to see what some of the girls have done and what we're going to be doing as we move forward. So without further ado, I want to welcome, we have here some of our coaches from last year who happen to be through Tech Trek alumni group. And so we got them connected in through the counselor route, and it was great having them working directly with the girls because they are so close in age to them, and yet at the same time they're removed from them a couple of years, and so the connection was real. And we're going to have them talk a little bit about it at towards the end of the presentation. So I'm going to get started. And if you would all hold your questions until the Q&A period, which will be at the end. We are going to talk about some of the most frequently asked questions. And then we are going to open it up so you can ask any questions that we haven't already addressed. So give me a second here. And if I can get a thumbs up that we can see the screen. For those of you, this may be beneficial for you to be either in, Barbara, you have a question? Barbara Silva. Somebody needs to mute who is on the phone.
That was me.
Oh,
That was me.
okay.
I'm muting.
Thank you. Everybody should be muting. I can mute you all, but that's kind of rude. So I would prefer it if you would mute yourselves. And that way, because we do have some sound in these in this presentation. For those of you who have Bakodo or some other QR code scanner, if you want to follow along, you didn't get the presentation from last week, you can use the QR code there and it'll take you to the PDF to follow along with us.
Excuse me, Mary, before you get started, I just wanted to know about how long this session will be.
It's probably, the presentation itself is probably going to be, what was it, 40 minutes, 35, 40 minutes with the Q&A piece of it. I know we went all the way for an hour and a half and we didn't do any breakouts or anything. It was just questions, people asking questions. And basically, I stopped asking questions when people stopped raising their hands.
Okay, that's
So
fine.
that's how
I
it
just
works.
wanted, I think we needed just a general idea.
Okay,
Thank you.
8:30-ish, maybe between 8.
That's fine.
Okay, so if everybody could go on mute, that'd be great. Let's see. So I'm Mary Isaac, and I am the San Diego Tech Trek Camp Director. I was brought on board in 2019, and I spent my first year as getting up to speed with Pat Bull and Tony Lopez, who were awesome, guiding lights for me, mentors to get me to where I felt that I could handle it on my own. I have had an assistant director set up to be with me in 2020, Joan Fisher, but obviously we didn't get to 2020. But before we got started, we had been thinking about doing some different things. And one of the things that we were not thinking about doing differently was we have a core course. And for those of you, most people here are familiar with Tech Trek, but basically you have core courses and then you have supplemental courses, workshops, etc. So some camps have 4, some camps have 8, some camps have, I don't know how many, but most camps do it their own way. And we would have 7 to 9 different core courses that we would split our 120 or so girls, 100 to 120 girls up into. And so normally we would have a robotics camp and we'd have 16 girls, 15 to 20 girls participating in that robotics camp. And we would send them to Qualcomm's facility. And we've been doing this for about 6 or 7 years. We would send them to the facility. They would work on the project at the facility on their own or in small groups of 2 or 4. And they would finish a project, which basically Qualcomm would get to keep. This year we modified that and we decided they had presented something a few years back, and some of you may remember it because your girls got to participate in it. And I think Jasmine, who is on the phone tonight or is on the call tonight, was one of those girls who got to participate in the hat camp. So they got to do the wearable tech camp. And so again, they got to participate as a coach this time, which was an awesome experience for them to go through. And so what we did is Qualcomm, we sat down in March timeframe, I think it was, when we started realizing things were not we aren't in Kansas anymore, Toto. So we knew that this was not going to be our year for doing a residential camp. And we started, collaborated with my Qualcomm partner, Gloria Banuelos. And so we figured that we would try to put this pilot together. And we originally had hoped that we could have handled the whole state, but it was too much to bite off. So we said that we would do a pilot camp, and we got agreement from the state Tech Trek leadership that we could put this pilot camp on, with the idea being that it might be something that we could consider for 2021. So we moved into the camp, doing it virtually. We normally, like I said, would have over 100 girls. We ended up having only 40 girls that were able to participate. So we had to do a random kind of selection of the girls to get them into the camp. But we tapped all of the branches. I think we said we had 18 branches, each of them providing a couple of girls, 1 to 3 girls. So there was quite a broad diversity of girls that participated. And one of those girls who participated is this young lady. This is Mimi, Marilyn Mimi Miamari, and she is from the La Mesa El Cajon branch, and she was something else. So one of the things that we do, this is the robotics course is a project-based learning, as I'll share in a minute, but it's a culminating project. So at the end, they have something that they can share with you. And they also, part of it is them learning a new tool, and that is this Flipgrid, which enables them to upload their work, the performance, the actual solution to the problem, and to share it with everybody else. And this is Mimi sharing it with everybody else. And hopefully it'll all work.
Hi guys, Marilyn here, and this week I was challenged with creating an automated hat that included at least one of my SIVs, which is strength, interest, and values, and a STEMinist trait, which for me personally, my STEMinist was Gladys West. So this is my hat right here, and I will explain to you my SIVs I included. So for my strength, I included Little Go Singing because I love singing. I do it all the time, so I just love it. I include it as my strength. And then for my interest, I put sports, since I just love being outside and playing sports. It's just really fun, so I'm really interested in that. And in the front, Jesus, because I deeply value my religion. I love being a Christian, and I just love it. So I deeply value, that's one of my values. And then for my STEMinist trait, I put in, since I have Gladys West, she created GPS and was a mathematician, and through all that hard work. So my trait was to have hard work. So I included her hard work in math by putting math symbols and GPS, a GPS picture, because that's what she created. So let me explain to you the techie stuff up here. In my breadboard, I included 2 LEDs and I included 2 servos. With a positional servo for the Little Girl Singing, going from 0 to 180 degrees, just moving around, because I want to include all my SIVs and make them automated. That's what I envisioned. And then my continuous servo, I put the sport just to keep it going round, round, and round. And in the back, I had a blinking yellow light and a continuous just white light going on, just not blinking, just staying on. And I put Jesus in front for it to be like shown, for the LEDs to pop it out, you know? And so the code, I had the 2 servos code along with the one LED blinking light code, and that's what I did. So that is all the circuit and code up here. And I did face quite a few challenges actually. Yesterday, my sketch wouldn't upload to the board from my code, but thanks to Dr. Mimi and my social coach and my build coach, they all helped me out. So that was all good. And also the building of the engineering cap, which I picked, it had to take a while because I had to trim off a lot since sometimes it wouldn't fit or it was too small. So, but I overcame that and did it. And then just knowing where to place it was a challenge, because I'm like, if I put it here, would the battery pack fit? Would the pictures fit? Would the pictures move? But I overcame it and did it. So yeah. And then what I enjoyed most about the engineering design process was that we got to use it and put it in real life with making a hat. But thank you to Qualcomm and AAUW, and everyone who made it possible. It was so amazing, and I'm so glad I got the opportunity to do it. Here it is, Marie. It's perfect.
So that was Mimi. She is something else, and she actually participated in the La Mesa branch meeting this past weekend, and she was as bright today as she was then, and along with a couple of her other camper mates, I guess, who are all in different teams. So let's talk about this year. That was last year. We had a lot of discussion about what were we going to do this year. And one of the issues, one of the kind of not ground rules, I don't want to call it a ground rule, but last year when we were talking about what we were going to be proposing for this camp, for the Qualcomm camp, I had turned around, and as soon as we knew that we were going to end up having to cancel for 2020, I approached Gloria and I said, what can we do? And then we turned around and we went to Susan and Alice and said, here's what we want to do. And we went back and forth, and it was kind of a back and forth thing about, you know, what are you gonna, how much you're gonna bite off, and what's the actual plan. And so we came to an agreement on what we were going to do. And the whole point was that we were going to try and test it last year and make sure that it worked before we tried to roll it out on a statewide basis. And so when the camp was a success, and when we realized that we were going to have to cancel 2021, the discussion came out, well, what can we add to it that is not going to, that we can risk not testing it thoroughly in a week-long camp, and instead say, we have done this before, how can we now turn this into a workshop that we could add on in the afternoon? And so what we did was the last year's camp, the 2020 camp, was strictly the morning piece of this, plus the inspiration hour. So we had no workshops. The day ended at 1:30, I think, or whatever, after the workshops were done. We started at 9 with the girls, and we were done by 1 o'clock, I think it was. And so what we would do is have the afternoon campers come in at the speaker session, and then they would do their thing for the rest of the day, the same thing that the girls in the morning did, the same curriculum, the same course repeated twice, that's all. So this adds the variety. Since we did not have the bench of having any virtual courses that had been tested, we said, what we'll do with the workshops is do science, technology, engineering, and math. We'll break it into those components, because there are some girls who just don't care that much about robotics. Will they do it? Yes. And by the way, we have a number of girls who said, I was not interested in it before I took it, but I'm so happy I did. So I think that that's part of what we want to focus on, is that we have this opportunity in the afternoon for the STEM subject matter to come out through the workshops, and in the evenings. And the evenings are still pretty wide open. This is all very much a draft schedule, in the sense that we may move international night to 2 nights, or we might move something else around. But for the most part, it's pretty cast. The weeks that we had selected based on feedback about when schools were going to be in and when schools were not going, when they were going to go back for the fall, which, by the way, is a lot less certain to many teachers right now, is when they're going to go back in 2021 after the summer break. So they're more certain about when summer ends, you know, when their spring, when summer begins for them, the summer break, but they're less certain about when they're going to go back. So right now we're talking about June 21st, July 12th, July 26th, and a backup for we'll call it the overflow week for the first week of August. Most of the schools will not be going back to school. I think there was one school in the survey results that said that they were going to be going back to school that first week of August. But that just means their campers, their students, need to be going to one of the earlier camps. That's all that says. All right, camp structure, I think, hopefully. So this is kind of the main structure, the structure we're using, a Zoom platform. And it says here virtual or assistant camp director. Basically, and we'll talk about this in a minute too, when we talk about roles and what we need your support for. The assistant camp director is like a mini me. They're going to be like a clone of me. So it will be me managing the overall camps with a plural, and the assistant director basically managing a week of camp or more. So it's not going to be so much a geographic position. It's more a job that needs to be done, because this doesn't depend on geography. There are pieces of it that depend on geography, but most of it does not. So you will have in the morning your core course, and that it consists of 2 lead instructors. The orange represents a build coach. So they're the people that are going to be leading the technical portion of it. And then we have a lead instructor, a social instructor, and they will be helping with the administrivia part of it. They will be leading the brainstorming. They'll be keeping track of attendance. They will be tracking all the things that teachers have to do if they had eyes in the back of their head kind of stuff. They're going to be the ones, and we have a couple people on the call tonight that can maybe, if you have questions about those roles, they can answer what they had to do last year. And so that right now, these numbers, I mean, you see them, but they may change a little bit depending on what rules Zoom puts in place between now and next summer. So we may have to restructure, but the overall numbers are basically going to be the same. 48 rooms, and in each of those, there's going to be 6 girls. So there'll be 6 girls and 2 coaches. And there will be a technical coach and a social coach. And the goal is also to have one of those coaches be an adult or be a older person, and another one be a near peer. So it's more, that would be typically like your counselor and your dorm mom, or your counselor and your teacher, or it's having that somebody that is closer to their age connect with them, along with somebody who is a little bit more mature. And that helps in many ways. It helps with the connectivity with the near peers to the adults, and then the near peers to the girls. So it adds that a whole nother level of community that's really important. And then we have at lunchtime the inspiration hour speakers, and those speakers we're going to give starting in I think it was January, we were going to open up speaker solicitation for different speakers for the different days. So somebody thinks they have an awesome speaker, let's see what's going on with them, and we'll see if we can slot them in. It's usually going to be 2 speakers per day. And at least right now, Monday through Thursday, we may also add Friday in. In the afternoon, we'll have some workshops. And those workshops, again, will be focused on, we've got science, technology, engineering, and math, as we showed before. And then on Friday is going to be a showcase. So the 2.5 minute thing you saw at the beginning there, we're going to strip that down a little bit less, make it a little bit more succinct, so that we can get to the points about what did they learn? Are they more interested in science now than they were before they went in? Did they have fun? All of those important things that are part of our mission as part of AAUW Tech Trek. But this, in the afternoon session, the workshops will be led by a presenter. We'll open up in the middle of this month, we're going to open up a solicitation for those proposals, and that will close at the end of January. And then we'll have a panel of camp leadership people that are part of the team that's working on this, that will evaluate those proposals. And we're hoping that we're going to have a couple members of our TTAG group participate in that also, so that we can hear their voice, because they're the ones who would be the closest to say, yeah, I want to hear this. I don't want to hear somebody speak like me, who's an old lady who's been around way too long. They want to hear somebody that is, whoa, exciting, that's going to be going to be inspirational to them. And I got a lot of great feedback about several of the speakers we had last year. So I know there's going to be some stiff competition from some of them in terms of, and I heard this at the La Mesa meeting, that all three of the girls were totally impressed with one of the speakers that I had. And I'm like, okay, that's pretty good testimony to me that this is somebody that we need to really make sure that she potentially is available. Okay, so that's basically how the structure goes. We've been talking about what are we going to do in the evening. And we don't, here's the deal. These workshops, we've gotten a lot of feedback from people that the girls are going to be virtualed out. And that's very possible. That is very possible. But we're going to try and make this fun. This is not about grades. This is not about you having to participate. We want these workshops to be something that they can benefit from. We want this virtual experience to be something that they can benefit from. It's never going to be the tech trek that it used to be in terms of there's no residential. Sorry, kids, that's not going to happen. But we can try and make this as social an experience as possible and give them opportunities to do that. And one of the things that we've been talking about adding is international opportunities where they can work with some girls from a different country. And we're specifically looking at something having to do with Nigeria right now, where we could do an evening session here and it could be a morning session for them the next day during a workshop. So that could be some fun things to do. We're also talking about doing a parent session. So to talk to the parents about, say on a Thursday night, to talk to the parents about what they need to do or what they can do to help their girls get ready to be prepared to go into a science field, what they can study in high school, what courses they should be looking at, and the kinds of experiences that are available to them. So those are some of the thoughts, and all of those we're hoping, obviously we've got a lot going on in our heads, but what we're hoping that the solicitation will do is bring in the ideas that have maybe happened at some of the past camps from different workshop presenters so that we can add them into the mix and take a look at what we have available to us, because we want the girls to get best in class. We want them to have opportunities that they otherwise wouldn't have gotten. Okay, and so each of these camps, each of these weeks of camp is going to be a little bit under 300 girls, or could handle a little bit under 300 girls. That's what we're planning for. But it's really a staff intensive role. So as you saw earlier last year, we actually had a 1 to 2. We had 4 girls in a room and 2 coaches. And so we got some feedback that was too many. And then we got other feedback that you could add a few more. So I did decide to go with a 1 to 6 or 1 to 3 ratio instead of a 1 to 2 ratio. And it's because we really want them to be engaged. And so we need to have that kind of a focus to make sure that the girls are engaged. Could we do it with 1? Maybe if you had to in an emergency situation, somebody could sit in for a room, but the goal is to get a lot of participation from this. Now, the beauty of it is that when we say 146 plus staff, that's actually, so you would count the coaches in the morning would essentially be 2, that's 1 shift. It's like the morning shift. And then they could also take an afternoon shift. And so you may actually have some of the same people in the morning that are doing the afternoon shift too. You may, this afternoon piece, the morning will not have the flexibility of coaches saying, I want to take only Tuesday and Thursday. But the afternoon session may have some flexibility for coaches to say, I can't do Wednesday, but I could do Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. Can we do that? And so there is going to be that flexibility. You're not going to have to sign up for the whole day. You can sign up for pieces and even within those pieces, you can sign up for certain days. We haven't totally figured out the stipend program yet, but there are going to be stipends associated with it this year, because we realize this is something that we need to make sure that we have the level of commitment to do. And this just kind of touches on, if we were looking at 3 different camps at this point in time, it's me, Kathy Ford, Susan, and Alice. Susan and Alice, once we get this through the board and get in terms of all the final approvals and the budget approval, which has already been in front of them as a preliminary, they're going to step away from the leadership of the camp. I'm running the show moving forward. So this will be totally whoever is on my team, and then it's up to me to deal with how do we get this through whatever the proper channels are to get approvals for press releases, etc. So when you look at it, it's who's the mandated reporter here? It's me. I'm the person who is going to be responsible at the end of the day for making sure that this satisfies whatever security requirements, whatever safety requirements. I am where the buck stops as far as this virtual camp goes. So we're still looking for a lot of people here. These are links, and all of these, you will have them available as PDFs. We're still looking for people. We need, as you saw before, I need tons of volunteer coaches, and we're going to train you. And I'm going to show you here on this next page, we're going to train you not just in the workshops, we're going to train you in the core curriculum. The core course is a robotics course, and it meets both our requirement for computer science and engineering. Now it's the same course, and usually they want you to take 2 different courses. But I said, wow, we get to do this all in one. And it meets the 15 hours of curriculum instruction that we're required to provide by national. It's project-based. It's very individualized, extremely individualized, because every girl gets to do her own design. So it takes them through the engineering design process, all the way through coding and circuitry. They get to add in all of their artsy stuff that they want to do that they think could be fun, and they get to keep it. And so we have one of the girls, Malia, who was on the call Saturday, who actually took hers apart, and she sent me a note ahead of time. She said, Dr. Mimi, is it okay if I take my hat apart and I take the servos and the Arduino circuit board out and I use them to try and make a little mini Roomba for my mom? And I'm like, what? So she was trying to make a little vacuum cleaner that would go around and clean her floor. And I'm like, bless her heart. Sure, you can do whatever you want with that. That's awesome. But I think the fact that they actually get to keep something is one of the real pluses of doing it virtually. So now it may be hard. I may have to convince Qualcomm next year that we're going to have to let everybody keep them when we go back to residential camps. So. And then on Friday, through the videos that they prepare, which is a whole nother piece, you know, learning how to present and learning how to speak in front of people, things that a lot of kids don't like to do, a lot of adults don't like to do. But this is something the family, we had branch members that showed up at it. I know Tony and Pat showed up at it. And then these videos are available infinitely for the camper to download and to share, to look at, to go back and check some of their old friends and say, oh yeah, I remember those people from camp. So it's an opportunity for them to do it in a safe environment. And then finally, they do get a certificate, not just for completing Tech Trek, but also for the course completion, because they actually have to do some C++ coding. So this is not, and the robotics piece of it is like an advanced, another step, in which many of the girls probably would not have taken had they not had this opportunity. So for both the campers and coaches, because many of our coaches are still in high school, and this is something that will look very good on their college applications. And so it is a real plus for them to have this kind of experience and be able to say, especially if they're going to go into a STEM field, to be able to say that, yeah, I've done this coding before. I've worked with Arduino. So the workshops, 2 per day in the PM, as we said, 1 required, 1 is going to be optional. And we're still not totally settled on what is going to be required to say, I completed Tech Trek. Because this is while it is not a residential camp, when you start looking at our girls, our Tech Trek alumni groups, you want to be able to say that this was in fact sufficient evidence that these girls are able to participate as a counselor in the future. And so this is it was something that we told them last year, that now that you've done this as a workshop, you came in or not as a workshop, you came in as a coach. Well, now we would like you to know that you're now eligible to come in come in as a camper, that you could apply for counselor positions in the future, just like anybody else does that's a Tech Trek alumni. So I think that's the positive aspect about it. Optional evening sessions, we talked about that, 90 minutes each. So these are short sessions, 75% hands-on. That means you get about 15 minutes to introduce your activity. We can introduce them asynchronously. We can let the girls get the material ahead of time and look at it if that's how you want to do it as a workshop. We're working on the proposal package right now, give you the opportunity to upload information about anything that's been done, then maybe you're just switching over to virtual. And if there's kits, and since it's hands-on I say hands-on or interactive. So hands-on to me is something you're going to build. Interactive may be something where you're in a breakout room with 6 other girls and you're all talking about a particular topic. That's interactive. That's where you're having some discussion, and then you may go back to the main room and report out on that. So that's a level of interactivity. And we'll be evaluating that the same as we would be evaluating hands-on. That there may be some workshops, because of their nature, that you're not going to build anything, but you are going to do some critical thinking, and you are going to do some work in maybe an app online. So that is an option. And this piece of it, we're not sure what's going to happen in terms of probably at least 2 that you'll have to attend of the optionals for a Tech Trek certificate to say I completed Tech Trek, that I did more than just the core course in the morning. I did in fact complete these. And the specified and required is more like we may decide that everybody should get something having to do with money. Everybody should get something to do with, I don't even know, money was the one that came up, how to manage money and how to start working, like adulting skills, I call it. Some of them are adulting skills, and those kinds of workshops are important things. And we think we need to, for instance, on Math Friday or Math Thursday, you would do something that would have to do with financials. That's math. And so that's an acceptable kind of workshop for something on Friday. So we haven't decided on that yet. Once we have the full team pulled together, then they will all be party to making the decisions on who gets picked for the workshops and who gets picked for the speaker series. We're talking about having our T-Tag girls help us with the speaker series, potentially as moderators, and to help us really get more engaged with the girls, but certainly helping us with the planning of it. So again, there'll be a stipend for the workshops too, a presenter stipend. All of these costs, by the way, anytime I'm talking about costs, there's no additional cost to the branch. Once you have pay your camper fee, whatever it is, you're not going to have to pay for computers. You're not going to have to pay for any of the other things that go with making sure that the girls have access to whatever they need to participate in the camp. I just want to make that very clear to people. And then the workshop presenter, they need to include in their proposal what they plan to do in terms of training coaches, if coaches do need training. In some cases, all they need is a set of handwritten instructions, but there might also be some training involved with some of them. So we need to know what that is. And that will start in December, as I said before, and we're going to close at the end of January. FAQs, this is the good stuff. I'm going to stop sharing here for a second and go to a different screen because I can't share off of those links from here. So let me do that. Thought I had it open. My eyes are too bad. Oh my goodness. Okay, so this is what the screen would look like if you were to click that link. And if you don't have this link yet, I'm going to send it out to everybody after the call. So some of you may have seen it already because you got some of the links from the prior call. So this takes you to this is the teacher survey. The other one will take you to the branch survey. And I move the name up to the top so you can more easily see. But it comes in when you click it initially. It should give you all these lovely little bar charts that tell you what the responses are and the number of people that responded to different things. And so in the bottom corner, it's going to tell you there's 65 responses so far. So there's 65 schools essentially who have given us some information. After the survey closes, which is December 15th, I will have a link, a spreadsheet available that just for you, that you can find your branch and you can look at everybody that replied for your branch. Today, the only way that you're really going to be able to do it is to be able to look at individual responses. So if you really want to know if teacher ABC responded, you can go to this link and go to individual responses. Then you can see their names. This is Redondo Beach. And then just scroll through them. Chicago Park, Robert Peary Middle School. So they'll go through, if they've answered the question, then you'll be able to see who has actually completed the survey of your schools that you asked to complete the survey. And here's the deal. We don't have to have everybody complete the survey. What this is doing is helping us get a lay of the land to figure out when. One of the questions that we asked is, when do you start and when do you finish? When, these guys are going to be done by the end of May. And then they're going to be back to school by August 2nd. So we know we have to get them. We know we have to get them into one of the camps in between, but it's like, okay, they could go as early as the middle of June if we had to. But right now we have what we have, the schedule's laid in. And so this is just to help you be able to see what your people are doing if you have in fact passed the branch survey on to them. And if you have any specific questions about anything having to do with the survey, just send me a note. All right, let me go back to the other one. Now I got to find it again. Okay. Okay, so that's the surveys. And again, many people didn't feel comfortable sending it to their schools, and that's fine. If you can tell me the real questions I need to know is, are your surveys, if the kids need technology help, are your schools currently doing something? If they are doing something, could they help? And if they, and knowing the window of when their summer break actually was. Those were the two important pieces. So no biggie. If they don't reply, it's not the end of the world. Camper fees. So, this is always a moving target, but we need to put a stake in the ground. certainly for any fundraising. And this ties into, this camper fees discussion ties into the, what do we do with the 2020 funds? So we have many branches that have a lot of corporate donors. And so every year they're going to get something. They don't really have to do heavy fundraising because they basically know that they go to the same places and they get funding. Other places, you have no idea how to do fundraising in times like this. I mean, it's just beyond them in terms of what the potential is. And especially, you know, some of the feedback we get is some of our members are mature, extremely mature. And so we can't really expect them to go out and be doing fundraising when those are the people we're supposed to be protecting, number one. And so the camper fees, right now we're talking about 400 roughly is what we have on the table, $400 a camper. It can only go down. So that is kind of a stake in the ground, and it's a healthy stake in the sense that ultimately what we'll settle on is if we get big donations in from a bit high, more than what we put in the budget right now, and we do have some donations in the budget, but if we get more than what we put in the budget right now, for people that maybe somebody wants to sponsor a workshop. And so we can work out the details of that. And then that essentially would be less out of your pocket as branches. So that would be money that we would then be able to reduce the fee for the camper. And the goal is to get as many, or send more campers, you know, there's another option. And so the camper fees and the camper numbers and all of those, many of those people have asked, how many campers can we send? Well, assume that it is no lower than what you sent before. So if in the past you sent 10 girls and you were planning on sending 10 girls in 2020, then figure you're going to start with 10 girls. And so that's the goal at this point in time. We've had in the branch surveys about which branches, and we've had a number of letters, emails from different branches. Right now, we've got about a third of the branches, maybe a little bit less, between a quarter and a third of the branches who said they doubt that they're going to play. And of the responses we've got, about 2/3 say they are going to play. So for every branch that doesn't play, that means that there are slots available, more slots available for other girls, which then brings up the whole 2020 girls selected issue. Can we send our 2020 girls? And it's like, great question. Let's think about that. And right now the answer is, let's see what the MOU say. If they come in and we've got 800, 900 girls already that are from 2021, that they're prepared to do that, then we may not have enough room to add in the 2020 girls too. Some people, just so everybody is clear, some branches never completed their selections for 2020. So there are a mix of branches with and without 2020 girls. And so it's, we have to think about that. And it's a question that somebody brought up. Well, how do we take care of our 2020 girls? And I think that that is a valid question, but it's really not necessarily the question for 2021. If there's any way at all that we could incorporate those girls, we will do that. If there's any way that we can do it, because when we made the decision last year that they could not be included, it was because we thought we were going to be residential, and we're not. So we can always regroup and go back to the state and say, hey, we think we ought to be able to bring 2020 girls in. And so if we have enough room, I would say that's a very feasible option. But at this point in time, we need to focus on 2021 and see what we can do in terms of filling the camps with 2021 girls to the extent that it's possible. And we'll talk, if you keep your questions, just write your questions down. You know, if you have questions about that, we'll move into the next one. With respect to 2020, yes, you will be able to apply your 2020 deposits. We haven't figured out the process for doing that yet, but like we said, we want you to continue doing your fundraising for 2021. It's important to keep those contacts alive so that when it comes back to residential camp and you go back from $400 a camper, if we have to go back and they have reduced our ability to house girls, it could be up as high as $2,000 a camper. So we need to start thinking about that as we move past the virtual camp, that you don't know that things are going to be the same in the future in terms of the residential camp. So we need to make sure that we keep those donors and that money coming in to the extent that we can. And the number of campers per branch. So Chromebooks and technology. I got some good news last week. I think some good news, some positive news, let's put it that way, that Qualcomm is working on an adaptation for Chromebooks so that we actually could use Chromebooks. And if that is the case, we should know about it pretty soon, but they have probably twice between us and all the camps that they do in the summertime, which they did a whole series. I'm not totally sure how many they did this year. I want to say at least 10, maybe 20 camps already. They ran into a lot of the same issues because they're working with schools. And that's the typical computer that gets sent home with the kids, right? Or Chromebooks, because they're fairly cheap and they're good, but they just don't work with Arduino. And so they have to find a way to make it work with Arduino. If they don't have technology, if they don't have access to an internet, and we can help them with a hotspot. There are things, a lot of the things that the schools are doing now, which is kind of why we were trying to pick at that a little bit. A lot of the things that they're doing, we can learn from. And we're willing to pay for doing some of the same things, but help us understand what the solution is. So we have budgeted a significant amount to take care of those technology-based issues to make sure that they don't become a reason for somebody not being able to participate. Now, here's the thing. Do not, and when you're doing your selection process, do not even let this enter into the equation. These campers, we need to judge them totally separate from their ability to access the technology. So just because somebody you think is in a socioeconomic status that they're not going to have a computer doesn't mean that you should exclude them from being the potential of being selected. We will make sure that they have whatever support they need to be able to participate in the camp if they want to participate in the camp. We talked a little bit about the lack of core course diversity. I think this was more a decision that was made based on a willingness to take risk on having a number of courses that were out there that had not been tested more than anything. And it's for 1 year. It's not as if we're trying to implement something that's going to change for the next X number of years. This is for the virtual camp and the virtual camp only. And surprisingly, the girls did actually, even the ones that weren't quite that interested in robotics, I don't think I had one girl say that this was a failure to her in terms of increasing her interest in STEM. Volunteer roles, there's going to be lots. They were asking what were some of the questions, and I shared the links. These are all, by the way, these FAQs, there's a link up at the top here that is in the presentation too. So you don't need to lean in to read it, Diane. It's when you get the PDF, when you get the PDF, you'll be able to click on that and go directly to it. So you can see all the FAQs. But they were asking what were some of the different volunteer roles available. And what do I need to know in order to, do I need a degree in engineering to be a build coach? No, you don't need a degree in engineering. I mean, Sophie, you were a build coach. We had a couple of the girls who were still in high school that were build coaches. So it's a willingness to learn. It's a ability to follow directions and to try something new and to really, be willing to live with an epic fail if it fails. So it was there, and there's also going to be some roles that are involving like the logistics piece of it. We had people in the field, and I know a couple of them are on the call tonight, who helped out with distributing the kits. And so those are predominantly volunteer roles, and it's not the whole week of camp. It's ahead of camp, and you're just basically making sure that the girls are filling things out as they need. Another question that came up, camper screen time. They're spending way too much time in front of the screen. I don't disagree with that. I spend way too much time in front of the screen. We all spend way too much time in front of the screen anymore. However, what this will do is oftentimes what we saw last year was the girls are sitting in their room. They're sitting back on their bed, looking, poking things and cutting things out and talking to the other girls that are in the breakout room with them at the same time. So the coach is talking to them, and they're able to have conversations. They're not staring at the screen at a talking head talking back at them. So they're interacting with the other girls that are in the virtual room with them and with the coaches in the virtual room. So when you talk about screen time, it's not the sense that, like we are right now. It's more the sense that they're in the room, or when I talk about breakouts and how much time they're actually spending in front of the camera, I don't, I spend more time in front of the camera than they do during the camp, because I'm always on in case somebody needs something. As the camp director, you're always connected in for the whole time. And so it's one of those things that, yeah, we'd like to get them outside. So somebody tee up a workshop that takes them outside to GPS something, somebody do something that involves them doing some kind of activity. Those are the kinds of ideas I would like to see come in for workshops. And then the whole privacy concern. There is, and anything we do is going to be secured. We're looking at the ability to use camp docs this year, which will enable us to collect releases, parent releases, code of conduct, volunteer releases, all the things that we need. And the good news is this year, we should not have to do the level of background checks that we have had to do in the past, because we don't have in-person exchanges. So we don't have to do fingerprinting for all of our volunteers, which is going to be a great thing to not have to deal with that. So we think we have the privacy things working, and we are working on making sure that everything is, we're going to give kids the ability to do virtual backgrounds, so that if they're worried about us seeing their messy bedroom, they'll be able to put the virtual background on. We had some concerns come up from some people about, well, what if we witness abuse? What happens then? What if this happens? And it's possible that you might witness something that you otherwise wouldn't have if it wasn't in somebody's home. You report it to me, and I'll take care of completing an incident report and doing the necessary to follow up on what was going on there. But we will, to me though, yes, there are certain issues, and you're going to have girls who aren't going to want to be on the screen, and that's the way it works. And so you live with that. And as long as they complete the work, and as long as they say they're having fun, to me, that could be a family thing. There could be any number of reasons why they don't want to participate with their face on the screen. So it's not enough to say, we're not going to do it. So we're going to honor privacy concerns, but at the same time, we want them to be engaged, and we want to make sure that they're having a good time. So this is Avi. Avi is one of my campers from the Temecula Valley branch. Oh, you know what I didn't do? Hang on. I forgot to share the sound. Oh, I did. Avi doesn't talk very loud, so hopefully you'll be able to hear her do her thing. And Avi was one of those campers that came in, and she, you know, she's a ballerina. So she came in and she wasn't super excited about doing robotics, but here's what she has to say. Let's see, Avi. Maybe not. Let's go back. What happens is the thing on the bottom that manages your panel is right in the wrong spot for me to click the, hang on, let me go back one. No, I'm not going to be able to do that. All right, you're going to have to, you know, when you see the link. But Avi, in any case, basically, I asked her to put something together, and I asked all the campers if they would be willing to help us do some marketing. And I asked them to share some of the things that they remembered about camp, and to also share what would you have done otherwise had you not come to camp. And these are some of the things that they said. So this is from Marilyn, who you heard at the beginning, and then Anushka, who was up in Torrance. And they both, basically the messages we got were, I would have been bored out of my mind. One of the girls said, I would have had to babysit my brothers and sisters for free. That was one of the things that, and even though they were at home, mom wasn't forcing them to babysit, which was a good thing. I think the Aviana, and I put all these links in here. Hang on. The links are in the presentation too, and you can actually see the video clips there. So I'm not going to show them to you right now because it doesn't work well within Zoom. And then coach testimonials. You know, some people are saying, well, what do the coaches have to say about this? And so I think that Kim, who is one of our instructors, she was on the call this past week and she helped us from Florida. So it was excellent being able to have that connectivity with AAUW members from all over and instructors from all over. Anjali, who also was a build coach, and these were all girls. Dwin was one of our teachers in the past. She taught our forensics course, and last year she decided that she was willing to help us out with as a build coach. And so she had never done any of this, but I will say this, she was resilient. She was definitely resilient, because I'm sure there were 1 or 2 times she was ready to give up. And a lot of people, you know, I'm an engineer and I run into engineers every day that never put a circuit together. So it's one of those things that there are a lot of people out there that have never done that. And people think, well, I'd have to be an engineer. No, I know engineers that have never done it. So the same thing here, you have a couple more links here for Caitlin and Sonara. And okay, so now I have Sophia. I believe I have Sonara, Jasmine. Anything you would like to share about the camp in your experience? Let's go back to, at this point, let's go to the view screen. And I'm gonna put it on speaker view. Sophie, how about you?
Hi, I'm Sophie. I was a build coach last year and the virtual Tech Trek. I went to Tech Trek myself in 2018, I think. And I was really excited coming out of Tech Trek in my year to come and be not a coach, but a counselor. And when COVID happened, you know, it was really sad, but I was really excited that I would get this opportunity to come and be a build coach. I have very little experience with coding and servos at all. I was like, I don't know how to do this. But there were a lot of good videos provided, and it was really fun to work with. I was working with Sonara and Joan, who was, I don't know if she's in the meeting today.
She was on the other night. I don't think she's on tonight.
Yeah. So we all worked together and we figured it out, and the girls were super nice, and I could tell in the beginning they were a little resilient to they were resistant to talking, but I could definitely tell by the end they were asking good questions and they were talking to each other without us like prompting them, and it was really great to see that interaction between them.
Sonara, what can you tell us about your experience?
I agree with Sophia. Hi, I'm Sonara, and I was a social coach working with Sophie and Joan. And I went to Tech Trek myself in 2017, and I was a counselor at UCI in 2019. So of course, when COVID happened, like Sophie said, I was really sad that I couldn't be a counselor again. But honestly, this opportunity was amazing, and it provided that same feeling, that family feel that camp always provides with the counselors and the dorm moms. That family friendly feeling, that whole week, that's what I felt, especially with working with the staff. And then like Sophie said, with the girls, they were so amazing and they really loved learning. I think in the beginning, they were a little, like she said, resistant to talking to one another. And of course, we went through a couple of bumps in the road with the coding. But at the end of the week, they built really amazing hats. And I was really proud of them, especially when they were showcasing them. They seemed really excited, and their personalities really did show throughout the week as we got to know each other more. I started to get to know them really well, especially with like one-on-one breakout rooms. Sometimes we would split up the group from 4 to 2 and 2 if people were at different spots. And we really got to talk and like get to know one another. So I think it was an amazing opportunity, and I'm really glad I participated.
Thank you, Sonara. Jasmine, you're still there, hopefully. Can you add
Yes.
anything about especially since you did the hat originally, right?
Yeah, so I was a social coach last year for Tech Trek 2020, and I was able to guide the girls towards not I wasn't a build coach, obviously, so I didn't tell them how to wire the hat, but I more likely guided them towards how to construct it, like the skeleton of the hat, and I was there to provide them guidance on what theme they would make their hat. So just giving them brainstorm ideas and just trying to get them to connect to each other as best as they could through the screen. So, having like icebreakers or trying to get to know what they like. And ultimately towards the end of the week, we knew that we all liked Hamilton, we all liked the arts, we all enjoyed, a lot of different things. So as a social coach, I was able to try to build relationships, not only amongst myself and the girls, but amongst the girls themselves throughout the week as best as possible online.
You guys were all amazing. It was so awesome to have you, to be able to work with all of you too. So